Ever feel like no matter who gets elected or which big company crashes, the same kind of people still keep winning? That's not an accident. In America, a small group of families has built power so deep that it can outlast presidents, survive scandals, and quietly shape the rules the rest of us live under. In this video, we're going to walk through some of the most powerful families in America. Not just who they are, but how their power works through money, media, food, oil, politics, and the everyday things you buy without thinking. You'll see how private family wealth turned into control over whole industries. Some families that look totally separate are actually linked through business deals and shared companies. And there are 3 stories you should watch for. One family that helps feed the world, but almost no one can name them. One candy family that is so private, you almost never see their faces, even though you see their products everywhere. And one final family at the end of this video that many of us have helped make richer without even realizing it. Stay with me, because when we reach that last family, you might look at how America really works and realize the people you thought were in charge were never the ones holding the deepest power. Let's start with a family whose name you already know, but whose story is bigger than just beer. Bush family. The Bush family is tied to one of the most American things you can imagine: beer at a ball game. In the 1800s, a German immigrant named Adolphus Busch helped create a beer that would become Budweiser. Over time, his company, Anheuser-Busch, turned into one of the biggest beer makers in the world. For many years, the Busch family kept control as the brand spread across the US and far beyond. Beer names like Budweiser and Bud Light became part of American culture: TV ads, stadium signs, bars, and parties. But behind that fun image was a serious family business. Shares, voting power, and family roles passed down from one generation to the next. Even when the company was finally sold to a global giant in a deal worth tens of billions of dollars, dozens of Bush heirs still walked away with huge money. Think about that. One recipe, one company, more than a century of family wealth. A simple drink turned into a dynasty. And that's just beer. If one family can build that kind of long-lasting power from a bottle on a shelf, what happens when a family controls not just a drink, but the news you read and the stories you hear every day? Hearst family. Now let's move from beer to news. The Hearst family's power began with one man and one newspaper. In 1887, William Randolph Hearst took over the San Francisco Examiner. He didn't just report the news, he turned it into a product. He used big, emotional headlines and dramatic stories to grab people's attention and sell more papers. As his papers grew, Hearst bought more newspapers in more cities. Then he moved into radio and TV. Over time, the name Hearst became tied to a media empire that helped shape what Americans thought about war, crime, politics, and even celebrities. Today, the Hearst family still controls a huge media company. It owns dozens of newspapers, nearly 260 magazines, TV stations, and stakes in cable channels, including some linked to big names like A&E and ESPN. Most people don't know the names of individual Hearst heirs, but they know the brands, the shows, the channels, and the magazines that sit in waiting rooms and living rooms all across the country. When you can decide which stories get told and how they get told, you're not just reporting on power, you are a kind of power. But newspapers and TV are only one way to shape how people see the world. There is another family that doesn't just report stories. They help decide what is stylish, what is cool, and which faces appear on the most famous magazine covers in the world. Newhouse family. The Newhouse family built their power in a softer but very strong way: culture. Sam Newhouse started with newspapers and built a media company called Advance Publications. Over time, this company bought and created some of the most famous magazines on Earth. They own Condé Nast, the publisher behind Vogue, Vanity Fair, GQ, The New Yorker, and more. These magazines tell people what to wear, what to buy, which movies matter, and which people are important. That's not all. Advance also owned a major stake in Reddit, one of the biggest social discussion sites on the internet. So while Hearst shaped what people read in print and on TV, the Newhouse world helped shape what people saw in fashion, art, and online conversation. If you have ever seen a Vogue cover in a store, laughed at a New Yorker cartoon, or scrolled a Reddit thread that changed how you think about something, you have brushed against the Newhouse empire, even if you never knew the name. This is a different kind of power. It's not just about laws or oil fields. It's about what people dream about, who they copy, and what they think a good life looks like. But media and magazines are still only one part of the picture. Some families don't just shape stories or styles. They also own the oil, the hotels, and even the sports teams that millions of fans cheer for every year. Hunt family. The Hunt family is a good example of how one fortune can spread into many different parts of life. It began with H.L. Hunt, an oil man who made his money in the early days of big oil in America. He bought land, drilled for oil, and turned black liquid in the ground into a huge family fortune. As the years passed, Hunt's money flowed into many places. His children and grandchildren ended up with pieces of different businesses, oil companies, investment groups, real estate, and more. One very visible piece of their power is in sports. The Hunt family owns the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the most successful NFL teams, and has a minority stake in the Chicago Bulls in the NBA. Every time the Chiefs play a high-profile game, the Hunt name is there behind the scenes. They also own unusual properties like Subtropolis, a massive underground business park built into old limestone mines. It's a reminder that family money can sink deep into the ground, into buildings, into steel and concrete. Oil money turned into hotel money, land money, and sports money. And this is still early in our journey, because while the Hunts turned oil into stadiums and real estate, another family turned small jars of cream into global power over how people see their own faces. Lauder family. The Lauder family shows how something as simple as face cream can turn into a worldwide beauty empire. In the 1940s, Estee Lauder started her business in New York City. Her method was simple and smart. She gave free samples to women in salons and said, "Just try it." That small act worked. People tried the creams, liked them, and bought more. From there, the company grew into Estee Lauder, one of the biggest names in cosmetics and skincare. Today, the Lauder family controls a company that owns brands like MAC, Clinique, and many others. Their products sit on counters in malls, duty-free shops, and bathrooms all around the world. The company brings in billions of dollars every year. But their power is not only about money. When a family owns major beauty brands, they help set the standard for what beautiful looks like. Who becomes the face of a new perfume? Which model gets the big campaign? Which colors become in this season? The Lauders also influence culture through art and charity. Family members are major art collectors and donors. Their names appear on museum walls and in cultural institutions. So now we have families that shape what we drink, what we read, and how we see ourselves in the mirror. But there is another kind of power that is less glamorous and more hidden. It doesn't live in magazines or perfume bottles. It lives in the wires and cables that bring TV, internet, and radio into millions of homes. Cox family. The Cox family built an empire, not by owning the shows you watch, but by owning the pipes that carry them. It started in 1898, when James Cox bought a small newspaper. Over time, his company grew far beyond print. Today, Cox Enterprises owns businesses in cable and internet, media, and even the car industry. Through Cox Communications, the family is a major provider of cable TV and broadband internet in many parts of the United States. Through Cox Media Group, they have owned TV and radio stations and newspapers. Their companies together bring in tens of billions in revenue each year. For most people, Cox is not a family name they think about. They just see the logo on their bill or the name of their internet provider. But that bill is a direct link between everyday life and a family dynasty. When a single family is behind the company that provides your internet, it has quiet power over how much you pay, what speeds you get, and which channels and stations reach your home. Owning content is one kind of power. Owning the road that content travels on is another. And if owning the information pipes is powerful, think about what it means to own the physical pipes that move oil and gas under the ground, the fuel that keeps cars, trucks, and factories running. Duncan family. The Duncan family's power runs through pipelines that most people will never see. In 1968, Dan L. Duncan started a small company with about $10,000. He focused on building and running pipelines for oil and gas. That company grew into Enterprise Products Partners, a giant in the energy world. Pipelines are not flashy. You don't see them on billboards, but they are critical. They move fuel from fields and refineries to cities, gas stations, and factories. When Duncan passed away, his children inherited a fortune worth around $10 billion. Since then, that family wealth has more than doubled. One of his daughters, Randa Duncan Williams, serves as the non-executive chair of the company. The Duncan family doesn't need to appear in ads to have power. Their influence runs under the ground, in the flow of oil and gas, in the prices people pay for energy, and in how secure or fragile the system is. So far, we've seen families with power in media, beauty, internet, and energy. But sometimes, power doesn't only come from what you own. It also comes from what you stand for, or what people believe you stand for. And that brings us to a family whose money is tied to fried chicken, strong values, and public fights over what those values should be. Cathy family. The Cathy family built their fortune through a fast food chain with a very clear identity, Chick-fil-A. In 1967, Samuel Truett Cathy opened a small restaurant and later created the Chick-fil-A brand. From the beginning, his company had special rules. One famous rule: Chick-fil-A restaurants close every Sunday. Most fast food chains stay open 7 days a week to make more money. The Cathy family church or spend time with family if they wished. This choice came from their religious beliefs. The business still grew very fast. Chick-fil-A became one of the most profitable fast food chains in America. The company stayed under family control. Today, second and third generations run it, and some family members are worth more than $10 billion each. But with strong beliefs came strong reactions. Some past donations by the Cathy family went to groups seen as opposing LGBTQ+ rights. This sparked protests, headlines, and calls to boycott the brand. So this family's power is not just about chicken sandwiches. It's about how their money and choices send signals about values in the wider culture. One family can turn a menu and a logo into a symbol in a national debate. But while the name Chick-fil-A is loud and visible, another family works in a quieter way. Their products sit under your kitchen sink, in your cleaning closet, and in the air fresheners plugged into your walls. S.C. Johnson family. The S.C. Johnson family built a business that lives inside your home, often without you noticing. In 1882, S.C. Johnson started a small floor wax company. Over time, it grew into S.C. Johnson, the company behind brands like Pledge, Windex, Glade, and many more. These are not luxury products. They are everyday items: sprays, polishes, air fresheners, bug killers. They sit in millions of homes, always being used and replaced. The family story also has drama. When one of the early leaders died without a will, there were big fights over who should get what. In the end, the company remained in family hands. Today, a fifth-generation member, Herbert Fisk Johnson III, is the CEO and chairman. The power here is simple but deep. Every time someone cleans a table, wipes a window, or freshens a room with one of these products, a little bit of money flows back to the same family line. So we have seen families that shape media, fashion, food, and home life. But some families go even further. They don't just touch daily life. They also reach into hotels, industry, and even high-level politics. Pritzker family. The Pritzker family is a clear example of how one dynasty can spread across business and government. Their story in hotels began in 1957 when A.N. Pritzker and his sons bought a small motel in Los Angeles called Hyatt House. They turned that one property into Hyatt Hotels, a global hotel brand. Over the years, the Pritzkers did much more than hotels. They invested through the Marmon Group and other holdings, buying and selling businesses in many industries. The Pritzker fortune grew so large that at one point, over a dozen family members shared it, and many of them became billionaires. But money was not the only source of power. Some family members stepped straight into public life. Penny Pritzker served as U.S. Secretary of Commerce. J.B. Pritzker became the governor of Illinois. Like many rich families, the Pritzkers also faced internal conflicts. There were long legal battles over trusts, money, and who should get what. In the end, the fortune was split, but the name still carries weight in both business and politics. This is where you can see a clear pattern. Money can buy companies, but it can also open doors to government, law, and influence over public policy. Still, even political office is only one layer of power. Some families don't need to run for office at all. Instead, they manage the money that flows into the stock market from millions of everyday workers. Johnson family. The Johnson family behind Fidelity shows how quiet financial power can be. In 1946, Edward C. Johnson II started a company that would help people invest their savings. That company became Fidelity, one of the world's largest mutual fund firms. A mutual fund is simple to explain. Imagine a big pot where millions of people put their money. Fidelity takes that pot and invests it in many different things: stocks, bonds, and more. When a company like Fidelity moves billions of dollars, it can move markets. Over 3 generations, the Johnson family kept control. They own about 49% of Fidelity, shared among a small group of family members. Today, Edward Johnson's granddaughter, Abigail Johnson, runs the company. Fidelity brings in tens of billions of dollars in revenue. If you have a retirement plan, a 401k, or an investment account at work, there's a good chance that some of your savings pass through Fidelity or companies like it. That means this family's decisions can affect how well your savings grow, which companies get big investments, and which do not. So now we've seen families in beer, media, beauty, internet, pipelines, fast food, hotels, and finance. But we still haven't met the family that helps feed the world, the one we talked about in the beginning, the one most people cannot name even though they feel its impact almost every time they buy food. Cargill-Macmillan family. That family is the Cargill-Macmillan clan. Their story began in 1865, when William W. Cargill started a business managing grain storage. Over time, that business grew and grew until it became Cargill Incorporated, one of the largest private companies in the world. Cargill sits in the middle of global food supply. It helps buy, move, process, and trade grain, meat, animal feed, and more. If you eat bread, meat, or many other everyday foods, there is a good chance that something you ate passed through Cargill's system at some point. The company is still mostly owned by the Cargill and Macmillan families. Dozens of family members own about 88% of the company. The business brings in more than $160 billion in revenue each year, but they stay very quiet. You don't see Cargill on the front of grocery items. You don't see their name in big ads. Their power works in the background, in farms, shipping routes, factories, and contracts. When one family can help decide how food moves around the world, how much farmers get paid, and how much companies pay for raw ingredients, that is a special kind of power, the power to shape who gets fed and at what price. We've now reached the point where family money and business control start to blend into something even larger. Because there is a family that did not just grow big companies, they also helped build one of the strongest private political networks in modern American history. Koch family. This is the Koch family. Their story starts with Fred Koch, who worked in oil refining. His sons later took that base and turned it into a huge private company, once known as Koch Industries, now simply called Koch. Koch is more than an oil company. It owns or controls businesses in energy, chemicals, manufacturing, and many other fields. The company brings in around $125 billion in revenue every year. But what makes the Koch family so important is not just their business success. It is how they chose to use some of that money. The Koch brothers became famous, or infamous, for funding political causes. They supported think tanks, advocacy groups, and movements that pushed for lower taxes, fewer regulations on business, and smaller government. They were a major force behind the Tea Party wave, which changed parts of American politics. Instead of running for office themselves, they helped build a network of organizations, donors, and media voices that could push their ideas from the outside. In simple terms, this is money trying to shape laws. They supported research, campaigns, and candidates that fit their beliefs. Over time, that spending helped shift parts of the political map. So now we've seen money turned into news, images, hotels, pipelines, fast food, cleaning products, investment firms, and political networks. But there is one more type of power we talked about, the secret candy empire. The family whose products fill kitchen drawers and pet bowls all around the world, while the people behind the brand stay almost invisible. Mars family. That empire belongs to the Mars family. Most people know the brand names, not the family name. M&M's, Mars bars, Snickers, Milky Way. These are just a few of their famous products. The company behind them, Mars Inc., also owns other food brands and a huge pet care business. It sells pet food, pet services, and more. In total, Mars makes more than $50 billion in revenue a year. The Mars family is known for being extremely private. They rarely give interviews. They do not appear often in public, yet they control one of the largest candy and pet food empires in the world. Think about how often you see their products. Candy at the movie theater, chocolate at the store checkout, pet food in grocery aisles and vet offices. Every time someone buys a bag of candy or a bag of pet food from one of their brands, a little bit of money flows back into the Mars family world. They also have a foundation that gives money to education, culture, and other causes. So their influence is not just on your sweet tooth, it's also in schools, museums, and community programs. We've now seen a family that quietly feeds the world and a family that quietly feeds our sugar cravings and our pets. It might feel like we've already reached the top, But there is still one more dynasty to look at. The family whose power has grown almost every time people go shopping for a good deal. This is the family many people help every week without ever thinking of their name. Walton family. That family is the Walton family, behind Walmart. In 1962, Sam Walton opened a discount store in Arkansas. His idea was simple: sell items at low prices and make money on high volume. People loved it. The stores grew and spread. Later, the family also created Sam's Club, a warehouse-style chain. Over the years, Walmart became the largest retailer in the world, with yearly revenue of more than $640 billion. The Walton family's wealth rose along with it. Today, just a handful of heirs share a fortune worth around $267 billion. But their power isn't just in numbers. Walmart is so big that it can set rules for many of its suppliers. If a small company wants its product on Walmart shelves, it often has to accept Walmart's price demands. This can affect worker pay, product quality, and even whether a small business lives or dies. In many towns, Walmart is one of the largest employers. That means the Walton family has a quiet influence over what wages people earn, what schedules they work, and what options they have for shopping. When you choose Walmart because it is cheaper or closer, you may also be choosing to support their way of doing business, even if you don't think about it that way. This is the family we talked about in the beginning, the one most of us have helped grow simply by buying groceries, clothes, or school supplies at their stores. Now look back at all the names we've met. Bush and Brown in alcohol, Hearst and Newhouse in news and culture, Lauder in beauty, Cox in internet and cable, Hunt Duncan and Coke in oil and energy, Kathy in fast food, S.C. Johnson in cleaning products, Pritzker in hotels and politics, Johnson of Fidelity in finance, Cargill Macmillan in food supply, Mars in candy and pet care, Walton in retail. These families do not all meet in one secret room. They do not all follow the same plan. But together, they form a kind of hidden map of power. They control what we see, what we eat, where we stay, how we invest, how we travel, and what we can afford. They outlast presidents. They outlast CEOs. They often keep power even when companies change names or when scandals hit. So the next time you hear about an election or a big company crash, remember this other layer. The families whose names you rarely hear, but whose choices and companies shape the world you live in every single day. If you want more simple, deep dives into how power really works, you know what to do. Stay curious.